They say that Chicago is the windy city, but those winds have nothing compared to what's coming from Raleigh. And it's going to be a Category 5 problem for the Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the Charlotte Checkers writer for the Calder Times. I'm the co-host of the Surgecast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you, everyone who's coming on to check out a Monday episode of the podcast as we get to preview the Carolina Hurricanes going on the road to start their first half of a back-to-back against the Blackhawks at the United Center. What are the keys to the game for their hopefully going to be a victory against the Blackhawks? And we got some updates after the practice on Sunday before the team headed out of Raleigh and head out to the land of Lincoln. But before we jump into all of that, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, one quick career update before we really jump into the episode. I am officially back with the Calder Times. If anyone doesn't know it, I was with them back in 2023 till the July of 24. So I was still kind of with them doing some stuff and writing with them before I went full with Hockey Writers. Well, as of Sunday, I am officially back. Nothing changes on the Hurricane side of beat writing over at the Hockey Writers. It's just it's being back at the outlet that covers the American Hockey League, more specifically the Charlotte Checkers, which it's only an hour and a half for me. So it's basically just being able to cover more hockey within the Carolinas, especially when you talk about the AHL and the NHL. So I'm definitely excited to be back with Calder Times once again, running it back with the Checkers and doing all. So like I said, nothing in the Hurricanes writing front is going to change with the Hockey Writers as their credentialed writer. It's just being able to put more shine on hockey in the top professional leagues when it comes to the Carolinas and stuff like that. So definitely excited. Big thank you to them for bringing me back. So just want to put that out there real quick because I know I kind of said in the intro, and that's where we're at right now. So yep. So still get Hurricanes as always, but now going to add a little bit of Charlotte Checkers back into the content of the writing side. So I'll make sure to drop those links when possible. Now back to the main thing. What everyone's here for. And it's the Carolina Hurricanes as they take on the Chicago Blackhawks. So this is the first game of the season between the two sides, and this will be on the Chicago Sports Network and also on FanDuel Sports South. So this is the first game between the two sides, but the thing is, the second game that's going to be in Carolina just 10 days later, as it'll be playing on January 30th, which is a Thursday. So it's kind of interesting for the fact that we haven't really seen the Blackhawks yet this year, but then we get two games with them in a span of a week and a half on a Monday and then a Thursday. So it's not that far apart. It's, hey, welcome to scheduling when it comes to the NHL. So this is going to be a later game than usual, because usually East Coast at 7. Sometimes if you're in, Central Time Zone's 8, but this is actually an 8:30 p.m. start. So it's not quite Canes After Dark where it's like a 9, 10 o'clock start. It's almost there, but, a little bit later than usual. The Hurricanes are 27-16-3 after their most recent win against the Vegas Golden Knights on Friday when they won 3-2, and the Chicago Blackhawks are 15-28-3. Now, looking at the last 5 games, who have been leading the points, goals, and assists for each team? Now, for your Carolina Hurricanes, obviously, points-wise, Jordan Staal with 6, Seth Jarvis with 4 goals, and 2 of those came in the game against Vegas, which was very, very clutch for the Hurricanes at the time. And then Jordan Martinook with 5 assists. And the thing is, he got 2 of them also in that same game against Vegas Golden Knights. So it's good to see that the third line, as you want to call it, because Rod doesn't like to number his lines. It was basically the Jordans and Jarvis doing their thing, and that's why they are currently leading in those categories for the team over the last 5 games. Now, if you look at the Chicago Blackhawks, it's one man and one man alone. And it's not Connor Bedard. It's actually former Carolina Hurricane Teuvo Teravainen, of course, back with his original team that drafted him when he started his career. He's got 7 points, 3 goals, and 4 assists. So, hey, you know what? Turbo's doing pretty well for himself as of late. Like I said, getting 7 and 5 and basically leading the team in all categories. Who would have thought, right? When you think of a team that has Connor Bedard and Taylor Hall and Nick Flynn and all that. Teuvo Teravainen's still really good too, but it's good to see that Turbo is doing really well in Chicago, leading the way in over the last 5 games for the Blackhawks. Now, quick transition over to the last 10 games, though, and Vegas is in some weird straits right now. They actually, the Vegas Golden Knights lost to the Hurricanes. They had to go to, they had to play Chicago and lost to Chicago. So the Vegas Golden Knights have actually lost to the Blackhawks and to the Hurricanes within a couple days of each other. That is the weird part of where they're at right now, is the fact that they go to Carolina, lose, go to Chicago and lose, and now the 2 teams that beat them now face each other. The Hurricanes are 5-3-2 over their last 10. Of course, like I said, they just beat Vegas recently, did lose to Buffalo and Anaheim. Of course, we don't know about the back-to-back against Toronto and Vancouver. The Blackhawks, on the other hand, they are 3-6-1. They've beaten Montreal, beat Colorado, which they've done twice already this year, which is still crazy to think that somehow as good as Colorado is, they've struggled with the Blackhawks. But to be fair, when you beat anyone in the NHL, because parity exists, which honestly, parity in the NHL for me, probably the best in all the major sports, but that's just me. They did lose 4 straight, though, to Detroit, Edmonton, Calgary, and then lost in a shootout to Nashville before they beat the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, looking at the tail of the tape, what are we looking at in terms of the stats and stuff like that? Because we all know that you can read these. Okay, one side of this says one story, but then, when it comes to the game, things can change. For your Carolina Hurricanes, they are 15th on the power play in the AHL at 21.7, but their penalty kill is second at 84.7. Now, on the flip side of that, while Chicago does have a 15-28-3 record, they're actually in the top 10 for the penalty for special teams. They are 9th on the power play at 24.3%, and they're 7th in the penalty kill at 82.7. So it's kind of weird when you look at the overall special teams and how they're in the top 10 in both categories, but then you want to look at the record, and like, well, where's the record coming from? Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit when it comes to the goaltending and just the roster as a whole. And, of course, a little bit more of the tail of the tape. Face-off percentage, Hurricanes are 4th at 52.6. I mean, no surprise, you got Jack Drury, Jordan Stahl. KK does pretty good sometimes, too. And then also got Sebastian Aho. Now, the Blackhawks, they are in 30th at 44.9. Now, this is where it comes to this makes sense of why the Blackhawks have a certain record. Well, they've blown a lot of leads, even though they've scored first a lot this season. Goals for per game, Carolina is 6th at 3.30, and the Blackhawks are 29th at 2.59. Goals allowed, and this is very, very telling. The Hurricanes are 9th at 2.76, so, pretty good. They're top 10 in both categories of scoring a lot and not giving up a lot. The Blackhawks, on the other hand, though, 2.59 goals for per game. That's 29th in the NHL. And then goals allowed, 3.41, which is 30th. So, suffice to say, yeah, your special teams may be great, but overall, your 5-on-5 play, which is majority of the games, bottom 5 of the league in both categories. Not scoring a lot and giving up a lot. And there was a stretch before the Colorado game, even when you look back at the Winter Classic, 5 goals, 6 goals given up. They were letting in almost anything that was almost thrown onto the net. So how does that bode well for the Hurricanes? Well, we'll talk about that in the second segment, which is what are the keys of the game that can help the Hurricanes do that. But when you look at the preview, look at the tail of the tape, this is where it's something where, like I said against Buffalo, it's not a must win, but this is definitely you can't lose this game. I mean, we all know, if you follow me on social media, you know I also like the Blackhawks. They're my Western Conference team. I grew up with the Hurricanes and the Blackhawks, thanks to, video games, collecting hockey cards, jerseys, stuff like that. So I mean, it's one of those games where, if you ask me, obviously I want the main team to win, which is Carolina, but I also, like I said, when the Blackhawks aren't playing them, I like them too. So it's one of those weird games where it's like, what can you do? But we all know it's Hurricanes first and stuff like that. But overall, though, for the Hurricanes perspective, everyone comes here for the Hurricane stuff, and of course that's my main thing. This is you can't lose. Now, we all know what happened to Buffalo. Hopefully the Hurricanes kind of turn around with the Vegas game like we hoped for Toronto and Vancouver and all that. So I think we're kind of seeing to the point now where how the team played against Vegas, this is what we need to see every night. So that's why I think this is once again, this is not a can't lose game. Now, speaking of that, what are the other keys to the game? Who are the players to watch on both sides? Well, if you stick around, we'll go over that here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we kind of previewed the tale of the tape, players over the last 5 games, kind of stuff like that, and also where I'm saying that this isn't a must-win, but there's also a can't lose. Now, looking at the goaltending situation before we jump into the players to watch, for the Hurricanes, Pierre Kachekov, 17-9-2, just course picked up the win against the Vegas Golden Knights, a 2.52 goals against average, a 902 save percentage with 1 shutout, and his 902 save percentage by NHL Network standards, as they've been posting, the league average is 901. He's at 902. So there you go. Overall, for the Hurricanes as a collective unit, 27, 16, and 3 on the season, of course, with a 2.76 goals against, a .890 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. Now, obviously, Justin Ducarcy is back in the American Hockey League because there was a certain move that happened. Of course, this is after, we did the Friday episode. It happened at Morning Skate where we all knew the news happened. And Frederik Andersen is officially back for the Carolina Hurricanes, coming off of IR and, basically having to go through his 8 to 12 weeks of recovery after getting knee surgery back on November 22nd. He sits at 3-1-0 with a 1.48 goals against and a .941 save percentage, and does have no shutouts, but we all know that Frederik Andersen's probably going to get one very soon when he will join the collective group of Kachekov, Tukarski, and also Spencer Martin getting a shutout. So we could probably have 4 goalies with at least 1 shutout in a season. So that's good to see that, and glad to see the Great Dane is back. So that's really awesome, and gotta give props to Dustin Tukarski for coming in. It stinks that his last game was the Buffalo game, but having a 4-2 record, still not bad at all. Still with a plus 900 save percentage and a relatively still good goals against average as well. It just thinks that he's that's kind of the last game you want to have before you go back to the American. But hopefully he does well in Chicago. We know he will. Now looking at the goaltending for the Blackhawks, former Carolina Hurricane Peter Mrazek, 9-16-1 with a 3.24 goals against and an 894 save percentage. Now the Blackhawks as a collective whole, 15-20-3, like we know, with a 341 goals against and an 889 save percentage and 0 shutouts. Now, on the flip side of Mrazek's numbers, Arvid Soderblom, despite his record being 6-11-2, overall his goals against is a 2.92, so it is a sub 3, and he does have a 907 save percentage. Now, Soderblom has had some, relatively tough games, but if you look at the roster in front of him and how the team has played, the record doesn't really match his overall stats in terms of fact. Yeah, it's given up a lot of, his goals against average is a 2.92. We're still a 907 save percentage. That's really saying a lot for the fact that you're seeing a ton of shots and you're stopping majority of them to be a over 900 save percentage goalie, but you're also almost giving up 3 games. So like I said, and I agree with a lot of people who've been putting this out there that wins shouldn't really be a goalie stat, but that's another discussion for another time when we have to get a special guest for that one who can kind of, give more in-depth of that perspective. But when you look at Soderblom, I could see why he's a pretty solid goalie. It's just, I think the Blackhawks as a whole has left him to try and put him in a really tough situation. Now, speaking of that, who are the players to watch on the Blackhawks side of things? And of course, I mean, it goes without saying, probably the main guy for the Blackhawks is Connor Bedard. 41 points in 46 games, 20 of those are assists. Averaging 19 minutes and 53 seconds of total ice time. The big thing, though, is he's a minus 18. And, of course, if you look at the Blackhawks as a collective unit, there is no one in the plus. There's not even a guy as a standalone even. When you look at the team as a collective whole, you're looking at every defenseman who's at minus 11, minus 12. TJ Brody's a minus 17. You look at the forward core. Philip Kurashev, a minus 28. Oof, Maroons, that's bad, but he's also been healthy scratched a lot. But, of course, goes to say when you're a minus 28, you're having a bad time. Nick Foligno, minus 14. Taylor Hall, minus 17. Tyler Bertuzzi, minus 21. I did talk about Teuvo Teravainen having a great run as of late. Also is a minus 12. So, but obviously we all know Connor Bedard's the main one to watch. I think in terms of a Hurricanes perspective, it's Teuvo Teravainen because, Turbo, former Hurricane, is now signed his contract to go back to Chicago. So that's definitely something you want to watch. Will it be an automatic free space for him to score against Carolina? Maybe if you believe in certain things like that. But usually in hockey and how the hockey guys usually work, it's always kind of like, it's kind of a lull, kind of like a ha-ha that a team that, the guy that you lost in free agency or you traded him to does somehow score against you. Might be the first game, second game, but I would not be surprised if Teuvo Teravainen scored. So definitely another guy to keep an eye on. Now, I will say there's someone on the defense I would definitely want to keep an eye on, and that is Alex Vlasic. Now, he is a minus 12, but he does average 23 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time. 17 points in 46 games. He is a very tall defenseman. He plays relatively well. He's a really solid guy to definitely want to keep an eye on. I would not say he's like Jacob Slavin levels of his defensive game, but his defensive game is pretty solid. But he does add a lot of offense too, where he does have 70 shots and at 92 blocks. Doesn't hit a whole lot, but he is someone who plays really good defense. Like I said, when he got 92 blocks. Now, take that plus minus. It's a context stat. He's almost averaging 24 minutes a game, but he's also on a Blackhawks team that overall there's no plus player. He also is not the worst minus on the defense. That will be TJ Brody at minus 17. But I digress. Vlasic outside of the plus minus, like I said, he's got 70 shots, 92 blocks. The guy's very tall. He's very good. Played well at Boston has a 4-year contract with those guys. Everyone likes him. So I say Alex Vlasic on the defensive side is someone to watch for the Blackhawks. Of course, offense, Connor Bedard, Teravainen, more so for the storylines. Now for your Carolina Hurricanes, and this is where it's going to get very interesting because of the fact that, for me, honestly, Seth Jarvis has been playing very well ever since coming back from his injury. Yes, he's got 33 points in 39 games. He is almost getting there to a points per game once again. But here's the thing, though, too. He's actually currently on pace for another plus 60-point season, which is very good for the fact that, he has played 7 less games than a lot of his teammates, but sitting at 33 and 39, he is on track to hitting at least 60 on the season, which will be great to see. Averaging over 19 minutes a game, 104 shots, 59 hits. Safe to say Jarvie is not afraid to throw the body at all, especially when you're playing on the line with Jordan Stahl with 79 hits, Jordan Martin with 55. safe to say, fits in pretty well with the line being a little bit shorter of a guy, but also does a lot of good scoring touch. 200-foot game, two-way hockey, power play, penalty kill, defensive face-offs, neutral zone face-offs. Basically, Seth Jarvis could basically do it all. And he got a really nice contract, and it's great to see how Seth Jarvis has been playing. Now, one of the other guys I'm really keeping an eye on for this game that could make things very, very interesting is Sebastian Aho going up against, his, best friend in Teuvo Teravainen. How is he going to play against him for the first time pretty much his entire career? Because other than that, Teuvo's been with the Hurricanes for a very long time, and he basically, Sebastian always only knew about playing with Teuvo, so this is going to be very interesting, the fact that this is their first time playing against each other, but I think Sebastian Aho will do well. 44 points in 46 games, 31 assists, averaging over 20 minutes a game, does have 124 shots, which is second for all of the forwards, just behind Andrei Svechnikov's 129. Now, going to the defensive side of things, and of course, it goes without saying that we talk about Alex Vlasic and how good he is defensively for the Blackhawks. Well, I mentioned him. It's Jacob Slavin. 15 points in 46 games. He's a plus 10. That's third best on the defense behind Jalen Chatfield's plus 13 and Demetrio Ross plus 15, which gives them a good plus 28. But for Slavin, though, 56 shots, which, he's not really much of a shooter, but he does have 73 blocks and 13 hits. So not much of a hitter. Doesn't really use his body a whole lot, but his defensive style of using his stick in the right place at the right time. And, of course, is Jacob Slavin. Doesn't really get a lot of penalties. He's just someone who really is good at shutting down the best players on the other team. So don't be surprised if you see him, shutting down Bedard, shutting down Teravainen, all those guys, Taylor Hall. Basically be ready for Jacob Slavin to do Jacob Slavin things. He is playing 1 second less than Brent Burns for total time on ice, but in reality, Jacob Slavin probably plays the most. It's 1 second. So Jacob Slavin is one of the other guys to definitely keep an eye on. So Slavin for his defensive prowess, as always, just Seth Jarvis and how much he's been playing really well as of late. And of course, Sebastian Aho, just like Teuvo Teravainen, goes into the storylines of you got best friends playing against each other for the first time in their careers, the fact that they've both been with the Hurricanes for the most part, with Sebastian being with the Carolina Hurricanes and only known as Teuvo for there. So it should be interesting for how that works out. Now, in terms of keys of the game, well, I kind of already mentioned it, and this is not a must win, but this is another, you can't lose this game. So hopefully, unlike Buffalo where they did lose, this is a situation where nope, they actually do win this game, and they take the first out of the two meetings and then come and get ready for Dallas on Tuesday night. So that plays into this next part. Do not overlook Chicago and get ready for Dallas. You have to take one game at a time. All points are mattering because the New Jersey Devils are 0-2-2 in their last four, and the Hurricanes have 3 games in hand and are 1 point back. Take advantage of the points in the cushion you have because, like I said, you have 3 games in hand on New Jersey now. You're 1 point back. Go into Chicago and win this game. Like I said, it's not a must-win, but this is a can't-lose. But also take advantage of the Devils very struggling right now. So go get that win. That's pretty much it. And then if this turns into a basically, yes, while you do have some slight advantage on special teams, take advantage of the 5-on-5 play. I know the Hurricanes have been kind of struggling on the 5-on-5 as of late for the most part, but the Blackhawks are not a good 5-on-5 team. Right now, the Blackhawks are good on the special teams. Like I said, they're top 10 in power play and the penalty kill. If you manage to limit special teams play, which I know for the Hurricanes, they're still really good themselves, so I'm not saying they're bad, but you want to take advantage of a team like Chicago who's not good 5-on-5. Like I said, you're talking 29th in goals for and 30th in goals against. This is a prime Hurricanes put in their will on a team who's struggling 5-on-5 when the Hurricanes themselves are relatively outside of the last couple months are a very solid 5-on-5. So use that to your advantage if you're a team that's good on the even strength, because if you do and limit it to maybe a penalty to each side, or maybe 2 penalties at the most on each side, you can still take advantage of a lot of 5-on-5 play because you're talking like 8 total minutes out of a 60-minute game where it's special teams. If you get 8 minutes of that, you're still talking relatively 52 minutes of 5-on-5 play. So when you get that much time, take advantage of it and just use it against the Blackhawks will. So there you go. If you're on the YouTube side of things, let me know in the comments, what are your keys to the game and what players are you going to be watching for the Hurricanes, maybe the Blackhawks too, if you want to keep an eye on those guys. So with that being said, we do have some updates from the practice on Sunday morning before the team left for Chicago. So you get some updates on injuries, why Shane Gostisbehere wasn't there, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So stick around. We'll go over those updates here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Have a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they have helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonAHL. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonAHL today to get started. Once again, that's selectquote.com/lockedonNHL. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, like I said at the end of segment 2, the Hurricanes did practice on Sunday before they headed out to Chicago to take on the Blackhawks tonight on Monday, and before they get ready to go play Dallas on Tuesday. Now, looking at the actual what was going on at Lenovo Center today, Tyson Jost was working with the team, but he was in his yellow no contact jersey, which, if we remember from earlier this season, that's how Riley Smith was for the preseason practices and all that stuff. So when you look at the roster, when you look at the lines, it was Andres Fetchikov, Sebastian Aho, Jackson Blake. Then it was Roslovic, Drury, Nietzsche. Then, of course, it was a line of Martinook, Stahl, Jarvis, and then finished out with Robinson, Kakaniemi, Yaska. Looking at the defense side of things, Slavin Burns. Then it was Smith, Walker, and then Orlov, Chatfield with Pierre Kachekov in the starters crease. Of course, as Walt Brofale says, don't look into the off day who's in the starter crease because it could change by the next day. And then, of course, Frederick Anderson. Now, Smith was in there because Shane Gostisbehere wasn't at practice. We will have an update for that here in a second. But overall, looking at the forward lines, it kind of is a no-brainer because that's the lines that they used in the game against the Vegas Golden Knights. But, of course, during the game, they switched Drury and Kakaniemi, so they kind of flipped those two around. So, for the most part, it looks like Roddy's going to go back with the lines that we saw against Vegas. Of course, that is subject to change because we all saw that there, even in the morning skate, it looked a little bit different to when the game actually started. So take it with a grain of salt. It's a practice. We'll see, what happens come game time. But if it's the same lines that we saw throughout the Vegas game going into Chicago, it makes sense. The team played pretty well overall, especially that third line of the Jordans and Jarvis. Now you have to hope that it's more of a, you help Andres Fetchikov kind of really get kicking into gear with Aho. And, of course, Jackson Blake had a phenomenal game. It looked like he was perfectly good to play on that top line with Aho and Svetch. He had a great game, got his 10th goal of the season, which is what love to see. He's one of the main guys in his rookie class to have over 10 goals. So it'll be very interesting to see how it works out. And it's also good to see, Ty Smith is working with the group despite being in the yellow no contact jersey. Now, in terms of the actual updates, after practice with Rod Brindamore. Basically, we're going to go like this from Walt Ruffin, just go right down the line. Shane Gostisbehere is fine. He was in the locker room with the teammates. No real cause and concern. Maybe a maintenance day. Maybe it's like hey, we got Ty Smith here. Let's throw him in some lines, give Ghost a break. He's also coming back from an injury himself, so maybe they don't want to overwork him too much with practices and stuff like that. He should be fine for game time. I wouldn't really worry about it. There are still no updates on William Carrier, even though we know that the Hurricanes are looking for another second opinion on top of the second opinion. So it's still weird because we don't really know what's going on with William Carrier outside of it's a lower body injury. Hopefully we give a fully update if he's going to come back soon or if there's going to be a longer effects. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. Now, in terms of, with Tyson Jost, who's also in a lower body injury, nothing imminent regarding for his return. He didn't really finish practice, so it's still a process that's going to take time. So I would not expect Tyson Jost to be back anytime soon. But he's with the team overall, still getting some practice in, even if it's not a full practice. Now, when it comes to the goaltending, of course, we got the Hurricanes playing the Blackhawks tonight on Monday, and then they go play Dallas on Tuesday down there in, Texas. My only thing is that they haven't really said how they're going to split the goalies up. Is it going to be Piotr against Chicago? And is it going to be Freddie against Dallas? Or since Frederick Anderson really hasn't played a game since November, is it Freddie against Chicago? And no disrespect to Chicago, not really any disrespect to Freddie Anderson, but maybe this is a game where it's like, okay, Piotr just played against Vegas a couple days ago. You haven't played a game since November. Dallas is more so on paper and by standings a better team. Let's not throw Frederick Anderson out to the Wolves or to the Blackhawks because Chicago reference. I know it's bad, whatever. But I would say it's probably more of a let's just put Freddie in a better spot to, hey, it's your first game back in a couple, in 2 months. Let's put you in where it's not maybe a super high tense game to get you kind of back into running back in the games. Because it's hard to be in game shape and game ready when you've been basically out and then trying to slowly get your way back into practices. So that's why I think it's probably better if we do have Frederick Anderson against the Blackhawks and then Piotr Kochetkov against the Dallas Stars, just so that way it's an extra day of rest for Piotr because he has been overworked a lot since Freddie's been out. And just for the fact that you give Anderson, I'm not saying a worser opponent, but it's not going to be as stressful going into this game where it's, we haven't played in a while. Let's just put you back in there to get you really ramped back up into a game action type of thing. So that's probably what we're looking at. So I would not be surprised. I mean, I could be wrong, and it could be totally flipped to where they do go with Pierre Kochetkov, so he's not on, taking extra days of rest. But I would definitely say that could be the case. But if it's me, I would say, put Freddie in against the Chicago, give him a game back under his belt, and then let's, give Piotr the start against Dallas because he's been playing really well as of late. And, an extra day of rest wouldn't be bad either for the guy who's been basically playing it's like 3 games out of 4 almost every week. So we'll definitely see how that goes as well. So that's pretty much all we have now for updates in terms of, Ghost is fine. Nothing to be worried about. We're still waiting on what's going on with William Carrier. Still waiting on Tyson Jost. We don't know how long that's going to be. And then, of course, now we're waiting to see who's starting in net against Chicago. And, of course, whoever's going to be not starting that night will be playing Dallas. So definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. But that will wrap up the Monday edition of Locked On. Of the day. I'm a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to follow me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees to both of my bios where you can check out my articles at the Hockey Writers and also the Calder Times if you want to keep up with my AHL stuff covering the Charlotte Checkers in the American Hockey League. Now, if you want to check out my other podcasts, it is the Surgecast. It's on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Now, for this podcast, it's Locked On Hurricanes, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, iHeartRadio. We're on there. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read it on the show. On YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button, let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed this Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope you enjoy your Monday. Hope you have fun watching your Carolina Hurricanes play the Chicago Blackhawks tonight at 8:30 on FanDuel Sports South, and of course on 99.9 The Fan. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.